Hi, I'm Adam, and this is Making Dollars and Cents at the Box Office. Now, there's nothing strange about what took the top of the charts this week, but I'm not going to troll you about it, so let's dive right into week 45. This past weekend was a much-needed surge of positivity at the box office after the seemingly never-ending dry spell that was October. Here to talk about the movie that took the top of the charts this week is our very first guest host, Zack Koop from Nerd Park.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Have fun.
I will, here we go. Surprising nobody, Disney and Marvel Studios have another huge hit on their hands in Doctor Strange. It opened this weekend in the US to $85 million, which brought its global total up to $325 million. That sets it dominantly on top of this week's box office. Doctor Strange stars Benedict Cumberbatch as the disgraced former surgeon and title character, Dr. Stephen Strange. After a freak accident destroys his hands, he turns to any medicinal and scientific means necessary to repair them. After exhausting his funds and his outlets, he turns to Eastern medicine, where he discovers a world full of magical spells, mystic artifacts, and alternate dimensions. Marvel's formulaic approach to storytelling, particularly origin stories, is still very prevalent. You might call it the not everything works, not everything has to method. Despite this, Scott Derrickson, the writer-director best known for horror movies like Sinister and The Exorcism of Emily Rose, is able to inject a healthy dose of darkness into an otherwise lighthearted film. Visually, the film is spectacular, whether it's the spells, alternate dimensions, costumes, or the Doctor's finely trimmed goatee. This movie is a treat for the eyes. Definitely go watch this in 3D or IMAX 3D. Honestly, this might be the first film in the last few years that's better in 3D than it is in 2D. Doctor Strange marks the introduction of Benedict Cumberbatch into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and his portrayal of the arrogant surgeon-turned-sorcerer is one of the best in the Marvel films to date. His story is well executed, with themes of humility, optimism, and acceptance. Benedict is joined by Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo, Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, Rachel McAdams as Christine Palmer, and Mads Mikkelsen as the villainous Caecilius. Despite strong performances by everyone, the Marvel formula still involves underwhelming villains and love interests. Mads and Rachel seem like top-notch actors wasted on one-dimensional characters, which, for a movie about multiple dimensions, seems a little bit ridiculous. Although not without flaws, Doctor Strange is another exceptional movie in Marvel's ever-growing list of hits. It gets bonus points for purposefully pushing diversity in its cast as well. You have a British guy playing an American guy, a white woman playing an Asian man, a black guy playing a white guy, and an Asian guy named Wong playing an Asian guy named Wong.
Well, thank you, Zach. It's kind of weird having a guest host. One might say it's strange. Anyway, thank you. Well, coming at the number 2 spot this week is DreamWorks Animation's Trolls. It earned $46.5 million domestically and added to its $104 million international cume that far surpasses its $125 million budget, which marks another win for DreamWorks. Anna Kendrick stars as Poppy, the leader of the trolls who want nothing more than to dance and sing and hug their way through existence. However, giant creatures called Bergens have learned that they will only experience true happiness if they eat these adorable, colorful trolls alive. The overall structure of the film is nothing new. It's a buddy journey film where two completely opposite characters are forced to work together for a common goal, but where Trolls succeeds is in the icing. The vocal cast is aces. Kendrick is wonderful as always, and Justin Timberlake plays Branch, a colorless grump of a troll who only really tags along with Poppy on her journey to avoid being hugged every half hour by all the other trolls in the village. Then there's Zooey Deschanel, Russell Brand, James Corden, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Gwen Stefani, Jeffrey Tambor, and plenty more. And on top of the cast, the music is a playful mix of original bubblegum blasts and some classic pop hits that will have you laughing and grinning and dancing in your seat no matter who you are. And all of this is coated in some of the brightest, most colorful animation of the year to overload your senses. This movie is like candy. Sure, it snows Zootopia, Finding Dory, or Kubo and the Two Strings, and I'm sure when Moana rolls around in a couple weeks, the sugar high from Trolls will have worn off. But I would be lying if I said I didn't adore Trolls and have plans to see it again soon, because once you get that beat under your skin, there's no stopping the feeling. And changing subjects entirely for our number 3 film is Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson. It's the story of Desmond T. Doss, a Seventh-day Adventist medic in World War II who took the 6th commandment of thou shalt not kill serious enough to never touch a gun. During his time in the war, he saved upwards of 75 to 100 lives and never fired a bullet or took a single life. The film itself is decent, with strong performances from Andrew Garfield, Hugo Weaving, and oddly enough, Vince Vaughn, as well as the slew of actors playing soldiers. However, the writing is a bit overdramatic and takes itself a touch too seriously at times, despite having some genuinely moving and powerful moments. One could argue that the gore was excessive, but I've also heard it argued that it's realistic, and having never been in a war zone myself, I can't really comment, but I do know that on screen, when you've seen enough heads blown apart and limbs blown off, at a certain point it becomes campy, and I think Hacksaw Ridge kind of toes that line. But the main thing I want to discuss is the fact that this film calls itself an anti-war or pacifist film. Now yes, Doss was a conscientious objector, and he opposed violence, but he still supported the war outright. And that's concerning because even though he didn't take a life, he supported the country taking lives and the war in which they did it. This is of course based on the real-life Doss, who did these things and held these beliefs, and I'm by no means critiquing the man so much as I'm submitting that this film shouldn't be called a pacifist or anti-war film. War may not be glamorized, but is treated as an unavoidable evil, and for a film that promotes nonviolence in the name of Jesus Christ, it sure does a great job of glorifying the United States Army and demonizing and dehumanizing the Japanese army with horrific fervor. With that said, it was incredibly refreshing to see someone pursue a path of nonviolence on screen, and with a conviction that honestly had me misty-eyed from time to time. Hacksaw Ridge is not a bad film, and I certainly see some Oscar buzz in the future for maybe a performance or two, some makeup or sound design, and possibly even a Best Director nomination for Gibson. And whether or not you agree with war or violence in any form, there's no denying that Desmond Doss risked his life to save many, and that is absolutely heroic. And coming up this weekend, Arrival lands into theaters starring Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, and Forrest Whitaker. Arrival may seem simple on the surface, but early reviews indicate that there are some layers deep beneath that cut to the core of humanity. But enough about that, Matt will talk about it next week. We also see the release of Shut In, a thriller starring Naomi Watts, and yes, a Christmas movie called Almost Christmas, which it's not even close. That's all for this week. Be sure to click subscribe, like, or comment, and another special thanks to our first guest host, Zack from Nerd Park.
Hey, you bet.
Be sure to follow Nerd Park on Facebook, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And when you're done, go see a movie or two, and we'll see you next time on Making Dollars and Cents.